Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Daniel Penney. I'm from Juna, and today I'm going to be talking about strategic low flow release modding that we undertook in the Eastern Mount Lofty Ranges. As other presenters have touched on previously, water planning provides security and certainty to not only existing and future users, but also ecosystems that are reliant upon the resource. The various instruments available to water planning at a Commonwealth level include the Basin Plan. At our state level, it's the Natural Resource Management Act. Under the NRM Act, the 8 NRM regions of South Australia have developed regional NRM plans, and where the current rate of extraction poses a high level of risk to existing users and the environment, then prescription can occur and water allocation plans are developed. So the very broad and basic water allocation plan framework is to develop a balance between demand and supply. When this balance has been determined, then the challenge is to establish sustainable extraction limits to provide for that demand at an acceptable level of risk. So acceptable level of risk to the environment is to fail no more than 15% of ecological metrics as per the Eastern Mount Lofty Ranges Water Allocation Plan. And the threshold flow rate or low flow release rate to achieve this is the 20th percentile exceedance of non-zero flows. In the Eastern Mount Lofty Ranges, the consumptive use limit is set at 20% of the resource capacity, with the provision of low flow releases from licensed dams and extractions. So dams have got the ability to capture water above that threshold flow rate. So what are low flows? Low flows are naturally occurring, regular small flow events that maintain pools and riffle habitat, and they provide connectivity for fish breeding and recruitment. The hydrograph that you can see there shows natural flows given in the blue, and then the effect of farm dams is shown outlined in red. You can see that downstream of a farm dam, the flows don't commence until the farm dam fills and spills. By incorporating low flows, which is the green component of the hydrograph, these flows can be diverted around the dam unobstructed and can be diverted downstream. But dams have still got the ability to capture that water in the higher flow events. So why strategic releases? Under currently proposed WAP policies, it would require 1,400 low flow releases on scope dams in the Eastern Mount Lofties. Scope dams are licensed dams and dams greater than 5 megalitres in capacity. So the question was asked, could the same outcome be achieved but by using fewer low flow releases? Investigations by Mark Alcorn indicated that this could be achieved at a surface water management zone scale, but this was based on headwater catchments only, so it required further testing at a catchment scale to assess the effect on downstream zones. To do this, a flow routing model was constructed for the Angus River catchment, explicitly representing all farm dams within the catchment. Various scenarios were run through the model, and results were analysed to try and identify parameters that we could possibly develop some generic rules of thumb between the percentage of metrics not met and dam development configurations. So that's the Angus River catchment. Rainfall varies from 400 to 850 megs. Probably the big statistic there's 1,055 farm dams that have a total storage capacity of 3,200 meg, and the dam density is about 4 times as high as the average across the Murray-Darling Basin. So that image is a screenshot of the flow routing model that was constructed. Each of the green triangles represents the 1,000 farm dams in the catchment. Also included is watercourse extractions, and the red points are the end of the surface water management zones. Inputs to the dam nose included no dams flow, which was proportioned to the subcatchment area of the dam, rainfall and evaporation on the actual dam itself, and the threshold flow rate, which was taken from the water allocation plan. The outputs from the model were daily flows taken out the end of each surface water management zone, and this was run through an ecological metric spreadsheet to determine the percentage of metrics not met for each scenario in each zone. So scenario 1 that we ran through the model was the base WAP scenario, and this was low flow releases on all scope dams. The larger dams were probably more likely to interrupt the downstream flow patterns because they take longer to fill and spill. And in the eastern Mount Lofties, the dams greater than 5 meg account for only 13% of the total dam count, but that's 31% of the total dam volume. So scenarios 2 and 3 assess the effect of low flow releases on dams greater than 5 meg and 10 meg respectively, but also included low flow releases on scope dams downstream in a blocking position that could block those flows that are released from upstream. Scenarios 1A, 2A and 3A built upon the 3 above, but excluded low flow releases on scope dams that had small watershed areas. So this picture shows the various scenarios that we applied. That's just one of the surface water zones in the Angus River. You can see scenario 1 there, and all the dams with low flow releases are shaded in yellow. So under the base WAP scenario, that would require 9 low flow releases, and it results in a percentage of metrics not met of 5%, which is within the acceptable level of risk of 15%. But if you look at the other scenarios there, scenario 3, which is for dams greater than 10 meg, that actually uses 4 fewer flow releases devices, but it still results in an acceptable level of metrics not met. So the total number of scenarios for the Angus was 25 zones times 6 scenarios per zone. The base scenario would require 153 dams, low flows releases, sorry. By strategically locating these, we could reduce that number by a third, down to 103. The wetter zones in the Angus were, with lower development levels, were found to have more strategic options available, but the drier zones tended to fail even the base WAP scenario, so probably not suitable for low flow releases. So the parameters were then compared with the percentage of metrics not met to identify patterns that may be used to establish generic rules. The parameters included the development levels of various types of dams, the low flow release area, which is the percentage of surface water management zone area where runoff is free to flow downstream, and then the low flow blocked area, which is the opposite. It's the percentage of area that downstream that low flow releases have been captured by non-scope dams. So this image probably explains that a little bit better. In scenario 1, again, you can see there's a number of low flow structures in the red circle there. The area upstream shaded green is because the runoff is free to flow in that area, but downstream you can see a large proportion of that is white because a number of those dams are non-scope dams, so there's no provision to put low flows on those, and that's capturing everything that's released from upstream. So by plotting the parameters mentioned previously, the best correlation for percentage of metrics not met was found to be the low flow blocked area and low flow release area. And the top example, you can see that as the percentage of blocked area increases, then the percentage of metrics not met also increases. And in the bottom example, it's the opposite. As we increase the the percentage of low flow release area, then the percentage of metrics not met decreases. So I'll leave today with a few images of some low flow release concept drawings and a device there that's currently being trialled. Thank you.
Any questions for Dan? No questions. Good. Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
Next person
Yeah.
is from SA Water. And this talk is called on the ecology side and the hydrology side.